So we're going to be talking today about apprenticeships in general, but also the apprenticeship opportunities that we currently have at Salford University. So we have our physiotherapy, podiatry and public health apprenticeship at the moment. And in September 2025, we will have the occupational therapy and also the diagnostic radiography apprenticeship. And part of this has been developed through some money that we got from the Office for Students bid to try and develop apprenticeships, not only the ones that we already have and try and encourage or support people to employ apprentices, but also develop some new pathways within some of the programmes that we already have as undergraduate degrees at the university. So I will pass you on to Charlotte. I think we also have Sophie here with us that's going to be presenting a little bit this afternoon. Sophie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi all, I'm so sorry I was a little bit tardy. I was in a progress review meeting, which is mostly what I do. I'm a learning and development coach, so I support from the compliance side of apprenticeships. So I'll tell you all about that later on.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Okay, I shall pass you on. Oh, sorry, I should also say we also have the enhanced practice clinical practitioner apprenticeship that is also being developed. And so, yeah, Jill's just put that in the chat. So if anybody wants to know a little bit more about that, and that is for sort of around that band 6 level, trying to develop the workforce, but packaged as an apprenticeship as well, that also can be funded through the apprenticeship levy. Okay, I shall pass you on. Thank you very much.
So this is the agenda of what we're going to go through today. There are a couple of extra points on there as well. I think we're going to mention just how placements work on apprenticeships as well. It's just not on there at the moment. Next slide, if you could. Yeah, so one of the main reasons we're talking to you about apprenticeships today is because of the health care workforce NHS long-term plan. So it needs to be increased by approximately 71 to 76,000 workers in the next 10 years. That's about 19% growth in our NHS careers. So this is going to be achieved by direct entry pre-reg courses and greater use of apprenticeships, hence over here, as well as the expansion of support worker roles and more apprentice roles within the workplace as straight-in jobs. Next slide. So what is an apprenticeship? An apprenticeship is a job with accompanying assessment and skills development program. It's a way for individuals to learn while they earn, gaining valuable skills and knowledge in specific job roles. This means it's more inclusive for people who may not be able to give out 3 years of work of their full time. It means that while they're earning a full wage, they can upskill and apply that within their work. Within an apprenticeship as well, it gives you the opportunity to practice all that learning in the work and boost the skills of the workforce to help economic productivity.
Okay, so what's in it for you guys? What's in it for the employers? So you can make the most of that government funding via the levy, so you can either use it or lose it. They've got a pot of money that's there for apprenticeships. It needs to be used, so why not upskill your staff, improve your service with this cost-effective training way? And you can support your employees to develop their knowledge, their skills and behaviours, and that's directly into your organisation, into your service. You can invest in that existing workforce that you are and retain the staff. I think one of the issues NHS has got at the minute, being the most predominant employer, is that retention of staff. So why not keep the staff and train them and develop that high calibre of staff? And it's that opportunity to rebalance your workforce and just get everybody working across the same level. So if we could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So these are just a few of the benefits that employers have said about having apprentices in their workplace, and about 96% of employers with apprentices have experienced at least one benefit, and most of them can account at least 8 benefits. And as you can see on my little diagram here, there are a lot of them. So 74% of employers have said that apprentices improve the products, the service quality. 78% say that it's improved productivity, more efficiency, and 73% of employers say that even staff morale has gone up by having the apprentices in that team and working there. So if you could have the next slide, please. We do have a little video that just shows you about employers' experience of working with Salford University on the apprentices, whether it will work with technical side of things, because technology is great when it works. There we go.
We've used Salford University for degrees for our trainees for many years now.
I would certainly recommend this route to other employers.
Great thing about working with Salford University is it's very easy.
Everyone at Salford's been very helpful.
Quality communication, ease and professionalism.
We're developing a range of higher and degree apprenticeship programmes across a number of sectors at the university, and these include health, digital, business, engineering, construction and biomedical science.
Our team are there every step of the way to guide you through and understand the obligations that as an employer you are required to meet to ensure that your apprentice has the best experience as an apprentice.
Degree level apprenticeships to HMG, the industry and the UK as a whole are important, and we now operate in a global marketplace where it is very, very important that we keep our skills up to date. Not just comparing ourselves in the UK, but comparing ourselves across Europe and the world.
It provides a real excellent way to get practical experience that they learn in work, and the theoretical side of it back in the university, and marrying them two parts together in a really kind of practical way, so that the employer and the apprentice get real benefit from that and bring practical knowledge to the university and theoretical knowledge back from the university to here.
You get a bit of a try before you buy kind of scenario, so you get to see what level they're working at, and you get to nurture them along the way. And I think when you have a slow burn training like you do with an apprenticeship, you get a better end product. It's not a rush training, it's a considered training.
You can also use higher and degree apprenticeships to recruit new talent to your business, people who've got fresh ideas, who can really drive your business forward.
Doing the course and integrating that with my role at the moment has already opened my eyes up to certain things. So we've just finished our accountancy module, and that's already helped me with things like budgeting and planning over time, things like that.
It makes great use of the levy, which has previously been kind of untapped for us. We didn't really understand how to kind of tap into that fully in the past. And that's been a really positive step for us and allowed us to take on some more apprentices than we would have normally.
It just makes sense in every level, and also you can nurture the staff you've already got and reward them for their hard work. So it's definitely the way forward as far as I can see.
I'm finding it really enjoyable, made some new friends as well, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Okay, I hope that was very informative for everyone. We'll go on to the next slide. There we go. Yeah. So engaging apprentice. So there's a lot of flexibility in education and training than before. An apprenticeship is a bit more specific to the learners. As an employer, you can create a role and train to that role, so it can be very pathway specific, or it being cross modality. Such as myself, I work as an assistant, or I did work as an assistant in OT and in physio. But I now sort of train not to be a physio, but I'm still working as an OT assistant as well within my workplace. So I've not completely lost my job role, but I work as an apprentice primarily. There's got a lot of postgraduate opportunities as well within apprenticeships, and some programs will enable the learner to define their scope of practice and in turn learning outcomes, as long as they meet the overarching standard knowledge, skills and behaviours. We call them KSBs in apprenticeships, but also the fundamental British values, so the FBVs. Previously, you may have been limited to specific curriculum within a module or the topic that was studied, but with an apprenticeship role, it can be applied within that workplace, which is great because you're constantly practicing what you're learning. We've got a nice little informatic there, just to give you a quick rundown. So you can either upskill your established workforce that's already there, such as myself. I was an assistant, now working as an apprentice, or you can create a new post, such as in Charlotte's workplace. She has the Annex 21 post. You can give it a search within her area. So you can recruit into new posts specifically designed for apprentices. And it works by a tripartite agreement. So it's an agreement between the apprentice, employer, and a representative from an endpoint organisation, which we'll explain later. Next slide. So funding. This is the good bit for employers, because you don't have to pay for us to do our degree, or most of it anyway. So if you are a levy payer, 100% of the course is actually paid for by the government through the apprenticeship levy. I think I looked at some stats the other day. There's about £4 billion in the apprenticeship levy for apprentices over the UK. So a lot of it doesn't get used at the end of the year, and it just disappears into the government ether. So the more apprentices you get, the better we can use that levy. If you're a non-levy payer, it's a £1,200 contribution, which is 5% of the full cost of £24,000, and the rest is paid for by the government. So it's even beneficial for those who don't pay into the levy. Next slide. Yeah.
Okay. So, as Callum just said, the endpoint assessment, but there's also endpoint assessment organisations, and that's the final stage of an apprenticeship, and that's an impartial assessment on whether the apprentice has fulfilled and developed all the skills, knowledge and behaviours, all them KSBs, and that your workplace is happy with that and the government is happy with that. So some of the organisations, I think one of the organisations is like Pearson's as well, so they'll independently assess the apprentice on certain terms and criteria to see if they have established that route. Depending on the course that you choose, on the university that you choose, it depends whether that is already integrated and it's already sorted with that external organisation, or whether you'd have to find that yourself. But depending on the university, you can get in touch with them, and I'm pretty sure they will give you all the help and advice that you'd need for that. So if we could have the next slide, please. So again, depending on the course that you'd like to do and the university, hopefully Salford University, the entry requirements, you'd have to make sure that your person that's wanting this apprenticeship has that right to work in England. They're employed in that relevant field. So like myself and Callum, we're employed within a physiotherapy OT kind of service. So we are physiotherapy apprentices. I wouldn't go off and do podiatry because that's not in my area. I'm not employed in that area, if that makes sense. And again, they'd have to have your minimum of your grade 4C in GCSEs, maths and English as essential, but not as essential, because you can do that as part of your apprenticeship starting off and on your onboarding, which we'll go into more later. But again, you've got to meet that academic criteria for the courses, and that whether that be your GCSEs, your T levels now, I believe, BTECs, even A levels, so anything like that you can apply for. But again, look at your university, look at the criteria, and then whether you can join from there. Next slide, please. So the onboarding thing, so once you've decided that course and you're happy with all your requirements, you can apply and it's all okay, you've got the go ahead. That then starts the onboarding, and we will go into it in a bit more. I think Sophie will go into it a little bit more later, but your person and your apprentice will complete a skills scan. So that is whether they are achieving any of those KSBs and knowledge, skills and behaviours prior to starting, and what level they're at. So it gives you a nice baseline, basically. It's just like a pre-outcome basically of what it is, and that will then be reassessed each year during your apprentice. You'll also develop an individual learning plan for that person, and that discussion with your employer, and the endpoint assessment and the off-the-job learning, which we will all discuss in a bit more detail later. So next slide, please.
This is just a quick informatic, basically describing what those are. So the 6 fundamentals, individual learning plans, diagnostic testing, which is your English and maths, and skill scan that they do before going into the apprenticeship, just as like almost like a measure to make sure that they are applicable for those for your apprenticeship. And the next slide. And of course, it all lines up with the British fundamental values that goes in with the prevent strategy. So it's promoting the fundamental British values to reflect life in modern Britain, and it's a basis for some of the laws, and it's a framework for all the UK universities and education facilitators. Supporting, next slide please, sorry. So as far as supporting the apprentice within the work, there's a work-based mentor. This is basically someone who's responsible and overseeing the on-the-job training, and as such, they will need to be suitably qualified and be supported in that role. The university will support them very well in that role, and what they have to do is engage in tripartite meetings, which is a meeting every sort of quarterly, They support and educate the apprentice during the workplace learning, document the competencies and confirm progressions through the APA assessment, of which my mentor is actually on this call, and I just want to give him a little minute just to say what it's like to have an apprentice within the workplace. Do you want to unmute, Mark? Is he there? He's there.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so I feel like it's been a really good process in terms of learning about the apprenticeship from the start, really. Kind of developing his skills through the process and spending time with Callan to kind of help him through that process. And as we've gone along, as he's kind of achieving the KSBs that he needs to achieve, he's then implementing them within the role. So he's kind of directly bringing those skills to the table at work, which is great. And also I do feel like I've been very well supported from Salford, especially with the tripartite meetings that we have quarterly. And yeah, I just feel like the process is kind of worked quite well between the team. Yeah, now that I'm based back in the same building as Callan, I've got more time with him as well to spend and do additional kind of skills learning with him on the job. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say, really. Yeah, very good process. I've enjoyed it.
Lovely, thank you, Mark.
Cheers.
All good words.
Pay him later.
Pay him later, yeah. Just from the sort of apprentice point of view, there's a required time that's given for off-the-job training. So that's such as when we come into university or training that's to get the course done. This is 20% of the work time. So say if you work a normal 37.5-hour job, it's about 7.5 to 10 hours. But from my perspective, that's really needed time. Like in order to get that upskill knowledge that I can apply within work, I need that 20%. But it's one of those things that as an agreement through workplace, you decide when you're going to be using that. You can just see what the kind of sort of the theory and the practical training, the learning support time is spent on. So this is like a training guide as well. It's just sort of that agreement between the workplace, working out when they want to do it, and what counts as off-the-job training in that little informatic for you. Next slide, please. So the potential curriculum workplace plan. So this is like an upskilling map. So this is something that when I've been doing my apprenticeship anyway, there's been sort of how does the employer or the other workmates and peers know where I'm up to in my apprenticeship and what I can do? So it's going to be a resource for the apprentice and the employer. So it's something that can be put up on the wall or something. Say, for example, I'm doing if you go on to the next slide. So, for example, when I'm going through my syllabus here, for example, I've got a module, say this one is actually CRAMS, this is chest and respiratory physiotherapy. So these are the things that I would be learning throughout my course, and then I would be examined on it. And once I've done that exam, I could then start applying that within work. As long as my mentors are sort of long arm supervision, I'm ticking those bits off, and applying that within work. I'm actually covered to do that as an apprentice. It's good. It's a great way of learning. I'm constantly applying these skills within work and constantly learning on the job, which is perfect. Next slide, please. So it's something that we could be, say, we get to this point, it could actually be a tasked thing within work. Maybe Mark could come up to you and say, right, you've just learned VQ and the control of breathing, for example. Let's go and work on those. And it's got KSBs within that role. So you're seeing which knowledge bases that I'm actually learning and applying within work at the same time. So I think it'd be a really useful resource for when you have an apprentice. And it's, as I'm upskilling, I'll be working at a higher band and taking that pressure off physios and other qualifieds, which I think would be excellent. And I'm going to pass you over to Sophie.
Hi, thank you. I've got control. I do. I'm a control freak, so I've had to take control of the presentation. That's just my issue. Anyway, really nice to speak to you all this afternoon. So I'm going to talk to you about the very exciting world of compliance. Really important when it comes to apprenticeships, because of so many people that get involved with the apprenticeship process. So these are some of the organisations that monitor the delivery of apprenticeships. And as part of our sort of tripartite gang, you would be beholden to these organisations as well. So we would then guide you through this process. So there's various tasks that we ask you and your apprentice to complete, and it's all down to these three organisations. So starting on the left, we've got the Education and Skills Funding Agency, ESFA. So they are the funding people. They control the apprenticeship levy, and those are the people that we draw down the funding for your apprentice from. So there's lots of things that we need to do to make sure that we are spending that money responsibly, and that your apprentice is learning through that money that's being spent. Next we have IFATE. So IFATE is the Institute for Apprenticeship and Technical Education, and they hold the apprenticeship standard. So that's the document that outlines everything that needs to be taught in relation to the apprenticeship, and hosts those KSBs, those knowledge, skills and behaviours of a programme. And the KSBs really are the foundation of any programme, and they identify what your apprentice needs to know by the end of it, the knowledge, what they need to be able to do, so the skills, and how they need to behave when they are doing all of the above, the behaviours. So the IFATE very much dictate the KSBs, and also the endpoint assessment, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then we have Ofsted. So any of you who have school-aged children or have ever been teachers will be aware of Ofsted. So Ofsted are there for the quality side of things. So they will come in and check that we are doing things correctly, but that we are doing things well. So we've recently had an Ofsted inspection, and we came out with a good, which we were all absolutely thrilled for. So we're now working our way towards outstanding. So Ofsted really there are to make sure that your apprentice is getting a quality experience. So certain things that we do in order to make sure that's happening as well. So apprenticeship compliance can be really quite challenging to navigate for all involved, and that's why each of our apprenticeship programs has an LDC, so a learning and development coach. So I'm the senior LDC for the health programs, and I have a team of LDCs who work across the different programs within the School of Health and Society. So we're there to provide support. We provide support to the apprentice in terms of making sure that they're okay, that they're coping with the requirements of the programme. And we do that by guiding them towards particular support services as required through Ask Us, which is our kind of one-stop shop for all the support that an apprentice or a student might need at the university. We're also there to guide them through the library support services, which are absolutely fantastic at this university. We have a whole programme of e-learning for those that prefer to work independently. We have live workshops happening at various times of the day, which works well for apprentices. And also our apprentices can book one-to-one support sessions with library staff as well. So really high quality support that comes from the library. And also we're really lucky as the apprenticeship department to have an outside organisation called Optimum Support, Student Support, who specialise in support for apprentices. This can be anything from additional learning needs like dyslexia, ADHD, through to mental health conditions, and anything really that's identified as an apprentice requiring additional support. They don't have to have a diagnosed condition. They go through an assessment that just identifies what they need in order to kind of level the playing field and enable them to complete their apprenticeship successfully. An amazing organisation that we get a lot of positive support from. So we help them to access those particular services. We also support the mentor and the employer. So Mark hinted at how helpful the tripartite meetings are. I'm sure he was talking about me. And we're there really to help provide some guidance in terms of what you can be doing to support your apprentice as well. We provide mentor inductions that we started doing last year and being rolled out across the different programs now. Because we know it's tough, because you may not have done it before. You might not even have volunteered. You may have been volunteered to do do this job and you're not quite sure what to do. So we're there to support you as well with how you support your apprentice. And also we provide support to the program team. So when it comes to the administration side of apprenticeships and all those rules that we need to follow, we're there to provide them so they can focus on the teaching and all that good stuff. And then we're there to support them with the paperwork side of things and to make sure everybody stays compliant. So I'm just going to take you through sort of a rough apprentice journey and how the different compliance elements are involved. So your apprentice will be on programme after they've onboarded. So they come and join us on programme. They're developing their knowledge, skills and behaviours for the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, however long your particular programme is. And they do that through the completion of their modules. Some programmes have placements, some don't. And then they have their off-the-job training as well. So iFate is the organisation that's interested in those KSBs. So they're developing the knowledge, skills and behaviours both academically in the classroom and then also in the workplace through work-based learning as well. And off-the-job hours within the workplace are absolutely crucial to help the apprentice take what they've learnt in the classroom and apply that into their workplace. Off-the-job training. So this is all the time when our apprentices are in apprentice mode. So as Callum was saying, he already had a job. So sometimes he's doing his normal job and being an assistant, and then sometimes he's in apprentice mode and he's maybe shadowing Mark or going off and doing some assessments, things that he wouldn't have normally done within his original role, but he does as an apprentice. So that's what we would class as sort of off the job in the workplace. So it happens obviously at university when they're released for their time that they spend in uni, and then also for all the off the job time they spend in the workplace as well. And during induction, we take you through all the different types of off the job experiences that can be created for your apprentices. And then we have your when they first begin in the programme. So when you first become on programme, the onboarding activities that Callan and Charlotte were talking about. So the skills scan that has a look at your current level of ability in terms of your KSBs. We ask apprentices to complete their BKSB maths and English assessments, because even though they've got their grade C or their grade 4 in maths and English, they might have done that 10, 15 years ago. And so that doesn't necessarily reflect their current maths and English level. So we ask them to complete their maths and English tests to see what their current level is at. So we take all the information. If they've disclosed a particular learning need, we'll look at that as well. If they've got lots of prior experience, so it could be that they've been working in healthcare for the last 10 years, that's a lot of experience there. And it's just that now they're going to specialise in a particular role. We take all of that and we create an individual learning plan. So even though everybody's working towards the KSBs, people need different things in order to be successful. So for some people, we're identifying particular support needs that they might have. And for others with lots of experience, we need some stretch and challenge. We need to make sure that they're being the absolute best version of an apprentice that they can be. So we need to make sure that that's embedded within the programme. So whatever your apprentice needs, whether it's support, whether it's stretch and challenge, we make sure that the individual plan recognises that and individualises the programme in that way. And then we have the progress review meetings. So these take place every 12 weeks. So this is an ESFA requirement. So we are required by them to make sure that we're regularly recording the progress of your apprentice. So we do this approximately every 12 weeks. Most of these happen online via Teams, although with some of our programs, we're lucky enough to be able to go in and do those face-to-face. These meetings will involve the apprentice, the mentor, and then somebody from the University of Salford. So it could be your LDC, it could be a personal tutor, and sometimes it's a big party and it's both of us. And you get sort of the input both from the academic side of things and also that sort of our sort of pastoral and compliance side of things as well. So you'll always have someone from the university in those meetings. And we're recording progress. So we're recording progress related to the KSBs, the knowledge, skills and behaviours, and how that's developing. We're also looking at off the job and making sure that the target number of hours that your apprentice needs to reach, that they're on track to make sure that they reach that by the deadline. And the 6 fundamentals that Callan and Charlotte sort of referred to briefly earlier. I'm not going to go into too much detail regarding these, but the 6 fundamentals are 6 areas that the university has decided are really important for apprenticeship development. So we take these 6 themes and we make sure that we're regularly talking about these particular areas as well, because it's really important in terms of employability moving forward. So that's their own program. So they're brilliantly successful, and we get to their end year, whether that's year 2, 3 or 4, and we get to something called Gateway. So Gateway is an apprenticeship term, and this is like a checkpoint to make sure that the apprentice has completed everything that they need to complete in order to pass their apprenticeship. So we confirm that all requirements have been met, the academic requirements are confirmed by the program lead or the link tutor, and then we ask you, their mentor, to confirm that you are happy that they're compliant against the KSBs in the workplace as well. And again, we will support you leading up to that and ensuring that you're happy to sign off and say, yep, you've seen all of those KSBs in action and that you're happy to sign them off as competent. Yeah, as I say, we discussed that at every single PRM to make sure that you're ready to do that. And then we get to the endpoint assessment. Now, your program might have 1 or 2 different types of endpoint assessment. So you might have one that is fully integrated. So this means that by completing the degree program, they've completed the apprenticeship as well. That just by their work going to an exam board means that they have completely passed both parts, so the apprenticeship and the degree. That's integrated, and all apprenticeships eventually are going to look like this. IFA are working towards all apprenticeships eventually being integrated. But for some programs, there is an endpoint assessment, which is a completely separate task away from the degree program modules. And so an endpoint assessment is that final check, that final assessment of all of the KSBs. And the EPA can be different for different programs. So for example, it could be that they need to produce a portfolio of evidence, maybe do a presentation and a discussion. For some programs, it could be that they set an exam. And for others, so for example, on our public health program, they have what's called a situational judgment test. They're given particular scenarios that they need to answer how they would deal with those scenarios in a real life situation. So depending on the qualification will depend on whether your EPA is integrated, and if it's not, what type of EPA activities. All of that is contained within the standard that the IFATE have, and that's all very accessible on the internet if you wanted to have a look in advance to see what your EPA is. So I'm very quickly going to talk about off-the-job training. So that's all set by ESFA. So apprentices are required to record all new learning which occurs in relation to those KSBs. So this learning takes place during lectures, practical clinics in the workplace, and during the apprentice's normal working hours. Apprenticeship target hours can vary between programs, but you'll know at the start of the program how many hours your apprentice needs to achieve by the time they get to their gateway meeting in their final year. And it varies from 800 hours to 1,200 hours. Often it depends whether there are placements involved with your particular apprenticeship program. So most of those hours are covered by university learning, but there is a proportion of hours that's required through the workplace learning, and also apprentices with their self-directed study, completing assignments, revising for exams, those sorts of things. So let's have a quick look at examples. Callan and Charlotte, feel free to tell me to shut up if I've gone on for too long. Apprentice obtains a lecture and learns about obtaining informed consent. Absolutely, that would be some off-the-job learning happening in the university there. Or maybe during a practical clinic, apprentice carries out a role play which requires them to deliver group rehab activity for the first time. That would be off-the-job learning. Or maybe in the workplace, the apprentice treats a client with cerebral palsy for the first time and liaises with his carers to agree goals. All of that would be off-the-job learning as well. And we know that because we can relate all of those to particular KSBs. So first of all, K2.4b, how to engage with people in non-discriminatory ways. For example, obtaining informed consent. That would be attached to our first scenario. S1.5, design and deliver individual and group rehab activities. That relates to the second. And then B, 4.4, respect and engage with the role and contributions of others who contribute to meeting health and social care needs. So if it relates to a particular KSB, we know it's going to be off-the-job learning. So KSBs can work very independently, or they can work collectively. So here's a podiatry example. So an apprentice completes an initial assessment on a patient. So all of these Ks are currently working at that point. So they need to know what's meant by informed consent when they do that initial assessment. They need to know about communicating in plain English. They need to know about the structure and the function of the human body. So they're using all of that knowledge at that time. Skills-wise, they're showing that they can observe, assess and diagnose and monitor and treat a patient's lower limb. And they need to know how to move and position people and podiatry equipment safely. So they're using those skills all at that time. And B1.1a, treat people with dignity, respecting individuals' diversity, beliefs, culture, needs, values, privacy and preferences. So all of those KSBs are working together in evidence of their competency during that particular example. We use a system called OneFile to log all of our off-the-job hours and our progress review meetings. So as a mentor, you would have access to that particular piece of software. We would give you login details and you can see what your apprentice has been up to in terms of their off-the-job hours. We log it in two different ways. So this is an example of our timesheets where they're logging what they're doing at university and any of their self-directed study, any revision or any support sessions. And this is our learning journal where they can identify some key learning that's taken place during the workplace and really reflect on that and how that's going to be useful to them in building their knowledge, skills and behaviours. Okay, that's me, I'm done. Happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Sophie. Just as a quick one, I have got my employer is on this call, Thove, who's lead AHP in Northern Carolina, Salisbury, one of them. But she's my therapy lead, so I'll just let you I'll let her tell you a bit about her experience of having apprentices in the workplace. I can hand you over to Thove.
Hi everyone. So as Callan says, I'm the therapy lead for the intermediate tier in adult social care in Bury, and we've got a number of different apprentices, although Callan is our only physio apprentice at the moment across our services. So I thought talk to you a bit about the benefits of having an apprenticeship from my perspective. So I found that since we've started having apprentices within each of the teams, they always come with fresh perspectives and lots of innovative ideas that they bring in from the learning that they are obviously gaining from a university perspective, which helps to adapt the workforce, which is always great. I think from a talent perspective, it's also making sure that we are upskilling people all of the time, and making sure that then they're already familiar with the company's cultures and the processes that we've got, so it makes it much easier to support students from an apprenticeship perspective. And then with the right guidance, all of the apprentices have very quickly become really productive. Callan is obviously already in a therapy assistant role and was very productive, but I think when you're coming at it from an external perspective, it just helps to upskill people quite quickly. And obviously can be quite a cost-effective solution. We are currently working on our model within the intermediate tier for how we support apprenticeships moving forwards, because they are obviously very new. But we're going to be looking at how do we then start to recruit to specific apprenticeships positions, whereas at the moment we're supporting existing members of the team to then upskill into qualified therapy positions. I think from an experience perspective, all of the apprentices have been really eager to absorb new skills and knowledge and brought a lot of positivity and a proactive attitude to the roles. And they're also they are very adaptable, so they'll bring in lots of new methods and technologies and information with them, and making sure that they are staying up to date with current practice, which is brilliant. And the hope is, because our apprentices are all very new at the moment, not quite reached the end, but we are hoping that obviously there's a sense of loyalty in the organisation, so we're training people up, and we hope that we then start to retain the apprentices in qualified roles. I think looking at it from a mentor perspective, it's really beneficial as well, because we have lots of band sixes that are really keen to support their leadership development. So then entering into mentorship roles helps them to then grow and support and coach people. So really helps from a mentor and a apprentice perspective. And then obviously there's lots of sharing of skills and knowledge and experience all of the time between mentors, other qualified people within the team, and then the apprentices. And the hope is that we then start to build and retain lots of AHPs. And I think from our perspective at the moment, obviously we haven't taken on apprenticeship specific with guaranteed qualified positions at the end of it, but that is what we're working towards. And thinking about it from a more strategic perspective, it's also then really beneficial to the wider AHP workforce. So yeah, there's lots and lots of benefits to taking on apprenticeships. And I think just feedback from the team in general as well has been that supporting apprentices has been much easier because people are already working in similar environments, whereas very new students who are just coming from perhaps school, college, don't have as much of that life and practical experience as the apprenticeships are actually bringing with them. But very, very positive experiences from us.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fove.
Okay, so I think I'm going to see from my point of view being an apprentice. So this is my second apprenticeship within my trust. I've initially done the Band 4 Foundation Degree Assistant Practitioner with my work, and now I'm on the Physiotherapy Apprentice in my third year, one more to go if it all goes well. But yeah, from my point of view, it's been really, really good. It's been brilliant working with Salford, and Salford's support has been second to none. It really, really has. And don't be worried, like, as employers, if your staff come to you. I was the one who approached my manager and asked to go on this apprenticeship, and Steiner kind of got the ball rolling, if that makes sense. So it can come from either, if you want to upskill your staff, but see if your staff want to be upskilled and if they want to take that step forward, because I know some people will be quite happy where they are. But if you're looking for people that want to progress, definitely go for this apprenticeship. And I think for me, it's given me that opportunity, because unfortunately I've not had that opportunity when I've been younger and straight from college. This has been a way in for me to still learn and work and earn, even though I'm older now and that, and I've got, you know, families to support, my mum and dad to support and that. So it gives me that chance to have a little go and think, well, I'm not daft and I've not missed my opportunity, if that makes sense. But also with my workplace, they have been really supportive with finding placements. We've briefly touched on it, but as an apprentice, if you're in an NHS trust, something like that, if there's opportunities for other placements within your trust, it's easy just to pop that apprentice in different areas, and you can vice versa. That's if they've got an apprentice, you can switch them for the 6 weeks, if that makes sense. And again, like this placement, I've been fortunate enough to be on this leadership placement now. The university will still help and still offer different placements elsewhere, if that makes sense. But again, it's just been a really positive experience. But if anyone's got any questions at the end, I'm more than happy to answer any of that if I can. But again, just from our side, it's really positive, and it's lovely to see that we can progress and have a go at things and not be worried. And we've got that long arm supervision, someone's there lurking in the corner watching us and making sure we're doing it okay. But it's good, and it's reducing that effort on other staff, isn't it, as well? So we're reducing the strain of other workers. We can take some of that burden for you. We can have our own clinic list now. We can help in that redesign of the service, really. But yeah, thank you for putting up with me. So I think that's it for now. So I know we've had a few questions in the chat, which I think Joanne's been a star and been answering, and Sophie as well. So if we want to go through a few questions, if anyone's got any questions, do you want to type them in the chat or raise your little hand if you want to?
Shall I pick up on the first one that came out? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
So one of the first questions was, how do you determine whether a work-based mentor is suitably qualified? So there are some quite specific aspects of this, in that whatever role you're training that person for, then whoever's mentoring them needs to have the knowledge and skills to be able to both teach and support them during that learning, and also to do some element of measuring of their progress towards the knowledge, skills and behaviours of the apprenticeship standard. So generally speaking, we'd be looking at someone in a more senior position who has been through that role and understands what the requirements of that role are. But this is something that came out in quite a bit of the stakeholder consultations that we've been having with employers, that they are actually quite worried about having apprentices in their workplace. They're worrying from the perspective of, can we support them? And that's something that we've been listening to. So as well as the support that Sophie and the apprentices have talked about once you're on the programme, and how the programme teams will aim to support you as a mentor as much as possible whilst that apprentice is learning with you. What we're looking at as an organisation is how we can support educators and mentors in the workplace to develop themselves as well in that role. We would expect someone who is taking on an apprentice in the workplace to have some interest in education and mentorship, but they might not already have that skill set. So we're looking at how we can support people who want to develop in that way. So in that respect, developing themselves as well in terms of their enhanced or advanced practice to be able to support apprentices and to prepare the workplace to be able to receive apprentices and learners. So that's something that we're trying to do at Salford, and we're looking into in terms of creating an accessible support mechanism for people. So we'll keep you updated on that.
Are there any other questions that anyone has? Oh,
Elaine? Yeah. Hi. Hello.
Hi. Thanks so much. It's really useful to hear it from both your perspective, the university and the employers. So thank you so much for putting it together. One of the questions I have is in terms of how do you manage to split that between apprenticeship mode and your substantive post mode when you're back in the workplace, and know what bits of work you can pick up into which, or has that just kind of naturally happened, and has there been any feedback, I guess, from your mentor on that, on how they've managed that as well within the team?
As far as when I'm in work anyway, like I'll go into a day sort of assuming my normal role, do what I'm normally doing. But I think if there's any sort of patients that are relevant to the KSBs that I'm learning at the time, I'll approach my mentor or one of the other sort of qualified physios or staff, and I'll ask, please, can I just take over, not take over, but can I be included in this? Or my mentor will actually approach me and says, we've got a really interesting patient, I know you're learning about, say, chest and physio. So they approach me and we go on, complete whatever I need to do, say objective or subjective assessments or special tests as far as physio is concerned. And it means I get the chance to sort of work with that patient and tick off those KSBs within the workplace. So it's kind of like a here and there, and sometimes it can be planned in as well. So if I wanted to do an objective assessment when I first learnt it, I said I want to do, say, 3 or 4 this week. Is it possible? And we plan it into the days.
Yeah, whereas with me, it's kind of a pre-arrangement. So I work in an outpatient department in MSK. So it's a bit difficult to flit here and there if you were on a ward, if that makes sense. So mine's built into my diary. So every Monday morning, I will have my mentor's clinic, and I will see all their patient. And that is my apprentice day, where I am acting as a physio. And then the rest of the week is I'm my senior therapy assistant role. I'm in that role. So that's how I differentiate the two, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And did you map that out then as part of your agreed personalised learning plan with your mentor and your university in your TRM?
Yeah, so that was part of the tripartite meetings, what Sophie was talking about, my mentor, my managers as well, because I have a few managers, and it was all built into the diaries, and we trialled and errored it a few times, like, well, that wasn't working, and we need a bit more time for there, I'm not getting as much supervision. We've just altered it and tailored it as we've gone along, so now I'm at a point 3 years in, it's kind of working at the minute, and it's just that steady progression and that development and transitioning as you go through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
If I could just add from a compliance point of view, so obviously apprentices have got their minimum number of hours that they need to achieve by the end of the programme. They used to call it 20% off the job. That's sort of being used less now, but it's sort of equates to about 5 to 6 hours a week that needs to be recorded every week as off the job learning. Now we wouldn't dictate to you when that happens. All our employers are so different. There's no way we could do that. But one of the best advice that I tend to give mentors is that the more time you can give them off the job and developing the KSBs, the more useful they're going to be to you in the workplace, the quicker they're going to progress, and the better end result you're going to have at the end. But it very much is a balancing act between your service requirements, service delivery, and then sort of investing time into them. And as Charlotte said, it tends to be something that grows. So maybe they don't get that much in year one when they can't do as much, but by the time we get to year 2, year 3, you want to be giving them as much as possible because they'll be able to do so much for you. But it very much is up to you. As long as they're hitting their required hours, then it's up to you in terms of how you plan and manage that.
Yeah, what we're doing is, because we're learning as we've gone along as well with our apprenticeship development as well, as we're creating our new programs, we're trying to share best practice amongst the programs. And one of the things that's come up again is the relationship between the education provider and the employer, and making sure that the communication is open between the two. And even from the point of view of having a handbook for the learner, to where when we create a program, we will map the KSBs to all of the learning that they're doing within the program, within the module construct. So that's fine, we can tell you what they've done, and we'll tell you when they've work toward a KSB or when they're working towards achieving it, and what that might translate to in the clinical workplace. So you can see where the theory maps across to practical, and then you'll be able to identify the type of roles that you can be doing with them, or the type of activity that they can be doing, so that they're really able to apply the off the job but in the workplace. So that's something that we're encouraging everyone to develop, and make sure that you're well aware of where they're up to, what they can do, and how they can contribute towards your service at each stage through the apprenticeship.
Any more questions before we wrap up?
I think it's probably worth saying as well, we are still doing lots of stakeholder events. I know, Joanne, you've got some events coming up in August, so that we can try and develop some of these programs in line with what our employers need and what the workforce needs are. So if anybody, we have a list of the people that attended today, and if you'd be happy, we will reach out. I know Joanne's our directorate lead for apprenticeships and is running quite a lot of the events, and also developing radiography. But we also have events around occupational therapy, public health, podiatry has just finished. That was one of our earlier events, and so we're just looking at sort of pulling all of the findings together and looking at what our workforce need and what the employers and our apprentices and our alumni think would be the best moving forwards. And as Joanne said, this is new, so it really is about us developing things that our employers need. There's no point in us developing things that don't work for you.
And that's pretty much it, I think, unless there's any more questions. We're going to send this webinar out as a resource, as well as the PowerPoint. There's some extra links just on the later slides there, and people that you can contact if you want any more information. So thank you for coming today. It's been a delight. This has been a project that's been 6 weeks making, so it's been fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
And it's all done.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being a part of it.
Well done, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Guys. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.